Did the unthinkable just happen to Kandi Burruss, the voice that defined an era? Moments ago, heartbreaking reports surfaced from inside an Atlanta hospital, where doctors have issued a devastating warning. The next 48 hours could determine everything. Tears, chaos, and silence. That's all anyone has seen from Kandi's family in the last 24 hours. Her daughter, unable to contain her emotions, broke down in the waiting room as doctors delivered the news no one was prepared to hear. According to exclusive sources, Kandi's condition has taken a sudden, terrifying turn, one that even her closest friends describe as life or death. The world knows her as a powerhouse, a survivor, a woman who built her empire with her voice. But tonight, that same voice, the one that carried songs, stories, and strength, may fall silent forever. And as her family clings to hope, whispers are spreading. Was this truly a medical emergency, or something far more complicated hiding behind hospital walls? Stay with us, because what's happening right now could be the most heartbreaking 48 hours of Kandi Burruss's life. The hospital lights flickered faintly as night settled over Atlanta, and outside, a crowd of reporters waited in the cold, whispering about what might be happening inside. Somewhere beyond those walls, a family sat in silence, trying to understand words that no one ever wants to hear. The next 48 hours could be life or death. Kandi Burruss, the woman whose voice once lit up stages around the world, now lay still and fragile, her fate hanging in the balance. The doctor's words had struck like a hammer. No one expected things to get this bad, this fast. Just days ago, there had been cautious optimism. But tonight, hope was giving way to fear. Her daughter stood frozen in the hallway, her phone clutched in her shaking hand, messages of support flooding in faster than she could read them. Fans were praying, celebrities were posting, but nothing could touch the hollow ache in her chest. She had been strong through everything, refusing to break down even when the first reports of her mother's collapse hit the internet. But when the doctor's voice cracked while explaining the severity of Kandi's condition, something inside her finally shattered. The tears came all at once, uncontrollable, gasping sobs that echoed through the sterile corridors. A nurse tried to comfort her, but she pulled away, whispering, "She's not supposed to die. Not her." Inside the room, Todd Tucker sat slumped in a chair, eyes bloodshot, his hands gripping Kandi's limp fingers. The steady beeping of the monitor was the only sound between them. Every rise and fall of that line felt like a heartbeat shared between hope and despair. Todd had always known Kandi to be a fighter, relentless, unstoppable. But this was a battle she couldn't win with strength alone. The doctors had been clear. Her condition was unstable, her body exhausted. If she didn't respond to treatment within the next 2 days, they would have to prepare for the worst. He closed his eyes and tried to remember her laugh, the sound that filled every room they'd ever been in, the way she turned a bad day into a joke, the way music seemed to follow her everywhere. But all he could hear now was the mechanical hum of machines. He whispered under his breath, "You're stronger than this, baby. You always have been." Outside, the chaos was growing. News vans lined the street, each network desperate for updates. Some reported that Kandi had slipped into a coma. Others claimed she was conscious but unable to speak. A few even speculated that her earlier diagnosis, the vocal damage that had shaken the entertainment world, was somehow connected to what was happening now. The public wanted answers, but no one in the hospital was talking. Every door was guarded, every nurse sworn to silence. Behind the curtain of flashing cameras, rumors spread like wildfire. Was this a medical complication? Or had the stress, the pressure, and the unending noise of fame finally taken their toll? People who once cheered her on were now dissecting every moment of her silence, searching for clues in her last public appearances. One fan commented, "She didn't look well last month, but no one noticed. We just kept asking her to perform." That line was shared millions of times, turning sympathy into guilt across social media. In a quiet corner of the hospital cafeteria, 2 of Kandi's team members whispered over coffee gone cold. One of them held a phone showing an email, a leaked message from someone claiming to have inside information about what really happened. "Don't trust the statement they are preparing," it read. "This isn't just about her voice." The assistant looked pale. "If this is real," she said, "it's going to blow up everything." They deleted the email, but the seed of doubt was already planted. Meanwhile, inside her room, Kandi's daughter finally gathered enough strength to walk in. She stopped by the door, staring at her mother's face, pale, motionless, yet somehow still radiant. Her eyes filled again, but this time she didn't cry. She took a slow breath and whispered, "You promised you'd be here for my graduation."
Her voice cracked at the word promised. Todd looked up but said nothing.
They just sat there together, waiting, as the rhythmic beep of a monitor counted down the seconds of uncertainty. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, washing over the flashing lights of the cameras, blurring reflections in puddles on the asphalt. It felt like the city itself was mourning, holding its breath with the rest of the world. In living rooms across the country, people refreshed their phones, hoping for good news that never came. Fans left messages under old videos, lines like, "You gave us so much strength, now we're giving it back." But inside that hospital, the strength everyone spoke of was fading. By midnight, the doctors began their final round of checks. Todd watched as they spoke in low voices, their expressions grim. No one said anything to him yet, but he could tell. They were running out of options. The lead doctor looked up, his tone calm but heavy. "The next 48 hours are critical," he said softly. "We'll do everything we can." Todd nodded, though his eyes said something different. He had already heard those words once that night. He didn't want to hear them again. As the doctors left, he reached for Kandi's hand and whispered, "If you can hear me, fight. Just fight one more time." Outside the door, her daughter leaned against the wall, eyes red, whispering the same prayer over and over. "Please, not yet. Please, not her." The next morning came quietly, as if the world itself was afraid to disturb the fragile calm surrounding Kandi's hospital room. The hallways smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee, the kind of scent that never leaves hospitals, no matter how many windows are open. Todd hadn't moved all night. He sat in the same chair, his head leaning against the edge of Kandi's bed, his fingers wrapped around hers like if he let go, she might drift away completely. The monitor still beeped, steady but faint, a reminder that time was both friend and enemy now. A nurse entered softly, checking the fall line, glancing at the monitor, whispering words meant to sound reassuring but falling flat in the thick air. Todd looked up just long enough to ask, "Any change?" The nurse hesitated, then said quietly, "She's holding on." He wanted to believe those words, to cling to them like a rope in the dark, but the look in her eyes said more than her voice ever could. Down the hall, Kandi's daughter sat curled up on a couch, her hoodie pulled over her head. She hadn't slept. Her phone kept buzzing with messages, reporters, fans, distant relatives, all asking for updates she couldn't give. Every notification felt like a hammer against her chest. She scrolled through posts tagged with her mother's name, #PrayForKandi, #StayStrongBurruss, and 1,000 more. Everyone seemed to care, yet no one truly understood. For them, it was a story. For her, it was everything. She replayed the doctor's voice in her head, those words that wouldn't stop echoing. 48 hours could be life or death. She hated how clinical it sounded, as if her mother's entire existence had been reduced to a countdown. She pulled her knees closer and whispered, "She's not a number. She's my mom." In another room, the doctors gathered around a glowing monitor, discussing her vitals. They spoke in short, coded phrases, too careful for anyone passing by to understand. But the tension in their voices was unmistakable. One of them, a younger physician, asked, "Do we tell them about the new results?" The senior doctor shook his head. "Not yet. Let's wait for confirmation." The younger one looked uneasy but nodded. Whatever they'd found, it wasn't good. By noon, the hospital was surrounded. News outlets had set up live feeds just outside the entrance. Reporters spoke in hushed tones into their microphones, repeating the same lines. Sources confirmed that Kandi Burruss remains in critical condition. Doctors have described the next 48 hours as crucial. Fans across the country continue to send prayers and messages of hope. Behind them, candles and posters had begun to gather, a makeshift vigil forming on the sidewalk. Inside, Todd's phone rang. It was his manager, voice trembling. "Todd, listen, there's something you should know. Someone leaked a voice memo from inside the hospital. They are saying it's from one of the doctors, talking about her condition. It's everywhere." Todd's heart dropped. "What do you mean leaked?" The manager sighed. "It's spreading online. People are saying she's already gone." Todd's jaw tightened. "That's not true." "I know," came the reply. "But that doesn't matter right now. The internet's running wild." He hung up and looked at Kandi, his chest tightening. Even now, even in this moment, people were turning her pain into content. The world couldn't just let her rest. It had to speculate, to dramatize, to consume. He stood up, pacing the room, his voice low but sharp. "They are already writing her obituary," he muttered. "They don't even know the truth." Her daughter walked in then, eyes wide with fear. "Dad, they are saying Mom's," she couldn't finish.
He cut her off gently. "Don't listen to them. She's still here."
"Look."
He pointed at the monitor.
"She's fighting." The girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She moved closer to the bed, placing her hand beside her mother's. "You hear that, Mom? They are talking about you again.
But you've beaten them before.
You can do it again." Outside, thunder rumbled, a low growl rolling across the city. The sky had turned gray, rain pressing against the windows like it wanted to come inside. The vigil outside had grown. Strangers were singing softly, old songs Kandi had written years ago, songs about love, loss, and hope. Their voices drifted faintly through the glass, a haunting chorus that seemed to echo through the halls. Inside the room, Todd sat down again, exhaustion finally catching up to him.
His daughter leaned against his shoulder. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped.
The only sound was the monitor, the soft rhythm of life clinging to its fragile beat. Todd whispered, "She's gonna pull through. I know she will."
His daughter nodded but said nothing. She didn't trust her voice.
Somewhere down the corridor, a doctor paused outside their door, holding a folder close to her chest. She looked at the chart, sighed, and whispered to herself, "Please, just let her make it through tonight." As evening fell, the rain turned into a storm. Lightning flashed against the hospital walls, and the world outside blurred under the downpour. Inside, Kandi Burruss lay still, suspended between life and silence, while her family waited, not knowing if dawn would bring relief or heartbreak. The storm outside raged through the night, wind howling against the glass, as if nature itself was echoing the fear inside the hospital walls. The hours dragged painfully slow. Every sound, the shuffle of nurses, the beeping monitors, the faint crackle of thunder, felt amplified, like the world was holding its breath.
Todd hadn't moved for hours.
His eyes were red, his hand still clasped around Kandi's. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow. He whispered prayers under his breath, words he'd repeated so many times they no longer sounded like sentences, just desperate fragments of hope. Around 3 a.m., a soft voice broke the silence. "Mr. Tucker." Todd looked up to see Dr. Jackie standing at the doorway, her face pale, her tone somber. "We need to talk." He followed her into the hallway, his heart pounding. The corridor lights hummed above them, and somewhere far off, the storm thundered again.
Jackie took a deep breath. Her vitals are
weakening. "We've done everything we can, but her body isn't responding like we hoped." Todd's throat tightened. "So, what does that mean?"
Jackie hesitated, her voice low.
"It means we need to prepare for the possibility she may not make it through the night."
He didn't say anything. He couldn't. His mind went blank.
The sound of the rain faded, replaced by a ringing silence that drowned out everything else.
Jackie touched his arm gently.
"She's still fighting, Todd. Sometimes that matters more than numbers." He nodded faintly, not trusting himself to speak. When he returned to the room, his daughter was still awake, her eyes hollow from crying.
"What did she say?" she asked.
Todd sat beside her, struggling to keep his composure. "She said, 'Your mom's fighting. We just have to keep believing.'" They sat there together, their hands resting on the bed, staring at Kandi's face. The monitors beeped softly, steady but fragile, each sound a reminder of how thin the line between life and loss had become. Hours passed, though neither of them noticed. At some point, her daughter fell asleep against Todd's shoulder, her breathing shallow but peaceful. Todd glanced at her, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "She needs you to rest. She needs to see you strong." As dawn approached, the storm finally began to fade. The rain softened, the clouds thinned, and the faintest hint of sunlight touched the horizon. Inside the room, something shifted. The monitors flickered, and for a moment, Kandi's heart rate spiked. The nurse rushed in, checking the screen, her eyes widening slightly. Todd stood up instantly. "What's happening?" The nurse's voice trembled. "Her vitals, they are improving. It's small, but it's there." Todd stared in disbelief. He leaned closer to Kandi, whispering, "Come on, baby. Keep fighting. You're doing it." The nurse called for Dr. Jackie, who hurried in moments later, scanning the monitors. She blinked, almost in disbelief. "She's stabilizing." It wasn't much, but it was enough to pull everyone back from the edge. Todd felt tears burning behind his eyes. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to hope. By sunrise, the news had already leaked. Somehow, reporters outside caught wind of the update, and within minutes, headlines flashed across the internet. Signs of recovery, Kandi Burruss still fighting. Fans flooded social media with messages of relief, their prayers turning into cautious celebration.
The vigil outside grew even larger.
People sang louder, some crying, some smiling, as if their hope alone could carry her through. Inside the hospital, the family stayed silent, afraid to believe too much too soon. Todd sat by the bed, his hand still around hers, whispering softly, "You hear that? They are all out there for you." A faint movement in her fingers made him freeze.
He looked up quickly.
"Kandi." Her eyelids fluttered, just barely, but enough to make his heart leap. Her lips moved weakly, though no sound came out. Dr. Jackie rushed back in, smiling for the first time in days.
"She's responding."
Todd's voice broke as he said, "Welcome back." The room filled with quiet sobs of relief. It wasn't a miracle yet, but it was enough to believe in one. Outside, the storm clouds broke apart, sunlight spilling across the city. The worst had not yet passed, but for the first time in what felt like forever, the world began to breathe again. Before you scroll away, take a moment to really think about what this story means. This isn't just another headline or another viral update. This is a story about a woman who gave her voice, her strength, and her heart to the world, and nearly lost everything because of it. For decades, Kandi Burruss has been a symbol of power, resilience, and passion. She built her career from nothing, faced every storm with a smile, and proved that talent and determination could silence any doubt. But even the strongest hearts can break, and even the loudest voices can fade when the world forgets they are human. In these past few days, the cameras have shown tears, hospital doors, and speculation. But behind those images are real people, real fear, and real love.
A daughter fighting to keep her faith.
A husband holding on to the only thing he can, hope. And a woman lying between life and silence, proving once again that strength isn't always about standing tall. Sometimes it's about refusing to let go.
So now, we want to hear from you. Do you believe Kandi will pull through?
Was this a tragic twist of fate, or a wake-up call about the price of fame and exhaustion? Tell us your thoughts, your theories, and your prayers in the comments below. Your words matter more than you think. And if this story moved you, show your support. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even when life pushes you to the edge, hope is still louder than fear. Don't forget to subscribe for the next update, because this story isn't over. The next chapter, her recovery, her truth, and her comeback, could be the most powerful one yet. Stay tuned.